is for the lads. So my name's Michael Vaccaro, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, and I'm a mindfulness-based counsellor and men's coach. And I wanted to talk about men's circles. So a few years ago, I'd probably say maybe 6 years ago, I hadn't attended a men's circle, and I hadn't intentionally gone out and sought to do men's work, anything around masculinity, men's mentorship. I'd spent a lot of years since I was about 16 or 17, so about 20 years ago, doing mindfulness, doing therapy, doing all different types of personal work. But one thing I avoided for a really long time was looking at my own masculinity and embodying that. And what I realized was that I had a massive block inside of me, that there was a level and a sense of disconnection from myself that I was totally unconscious of. But what I did know is that when I was around men, I felt really uncomfortable. If I ever had to have any confrontation with another man, I would be so filled with fear and adrenaline that I could barely even speak. So my experience was that it was better to just avoid that, and it also meant that I spent a lot of my time hanging out with women as friends, or just getting a partner, a long-term relationship, and just spending all my time with them and barely any time with men. It affected my relationship with my dad. And so the reason why I'm saying all this is because maybe out there listening to this, there's an element of what I went through that you might be going through. And I did something that was pretty unorthodox. I attended one men's circle led by a local legend here in the Byron Shire, Paulie Hunt. Hey Paulie. And I was really touched by the experience and scared by it at the same time. And then what I decided to do, because I really wanted that more in my life, is I just decided to start my own. So for about 5 years, I ran a men's circle here in the Byron Shire, where we would get together and we would sit by a fire and we would share and talk and support each other. And it was one of the most powerful things that I had ever done to reconnect with my own sense of masculinity. And in the other video that I'll be sharing, I recently shared actually with Dr. Jimmy Willumban, we talk about how there's this disconnection in society from masculinity. If you think about things like masculinity, alpha male, and even things like power and success, there tends to be a bit of a cringe there, like that there's something inherently wrong with those things. And so the problem was, for me, I was disempowered in my life because I wasn't connected with that part of myself. So you can even see, just from the perspective of not having close male friends, feeling uncomfortable with other men, and not even be able to confront men when there's an issue that needs to be addressed, how limiting that was for me moving forward. So what I learned from doing it myself is that within me, that there was this whole other part of myself that I hadn't been in touch with, hadn't realized, and that once I tapped into it and knew it, although it was scary and sometimes I didn't really want to do it and it was hard, that in actual fact, I feel more myself now than ever. I feel more authentic, and I feel more courageous and directed and focused on who I am and what I want to create in the world than I ever have. And I largely give that to the work that I've been doing with men over those years. And I'm still in men's circle now. It's just led by somebody else who released an interview with this month, which is James Harvey. So what I want to give to you, if you're listening to this and you can resonate with what I'm talking about, is that if you can ask around and find if there's a men's circle in your area, I highly recommend that you go and you explore and you experiment. Not all men's circles are created equal. There's lots of different versions. Some require that you pay money, some don't. Some require that you show up every week or every fortnight no matter what, and you're committing to that, whereas some are more like drop-in circles. Some are large and some are small. So I want to talk a little bit about what worked for me in the men's circle that I created and the one that I'm in now. And I want to encourage you to think about this and take it with you and try and bring men's gatherings, men's circles into your life, whether it's one that you create yourself or one that you find in your community. There's also online ones as well. So what worked for me, what we did, so the one that I started was called Man Fire, and we would meet on a fortnightly basis on a Monday, and we had a messenger thread where we stayed connected with each other and could do organizational conversations and also share inspiration and things like that. Someone would host every fortnight. They'd set up a fire. Someone would cook a meal every fortnight, and we would go and we would meet up and we would eat, get the fire going, and then at some point we would do the more formal part of the men's gathering, where we would sit in a circle around the fire. We'd have a talking stick, and I would often start by leading a meditation, maybe doing some drumming, acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, acknowledging our own fathers and our lineage as men in our life. And then we would open up the circle for sharing. And if there was a lot of people there, or if we didn't have enough time, we would often use a timer and have time shares. But you don't have to do it that way. This is just what worked for me. And then, so I then went ahead and left the talking stick available. So there wasn't an order, we didn't go in a circle, it was just available. And anyone can come forward and grab that stick. And once you've got the stick, it's your time to share. And sharing in a men's circle is about telling your authentic story, feelings, experiences, insights, and challenges. And the only job of the other men at that minute is to listen without interrupting you, is to give you the space to share in whatever way, however way you want. And then after the person sharing finishes, they just acknowledge that they're finished. Some people say ho or aho, or some people say thank you, thanks for listening, and they put the stick down. There's an opportunity if other men want to give input, feedback, advice, or maybe the man that was sharing had a question, and then they have a chance of answering it. And then after that's happened, you get back to the business of who's going to share next, and the next person can take the stick up, and so on and so forth like that. So the important things about that structure is, one, you start off by grounding in, by letting go of everything that is the context of the momentum of what's been happening in your week or your fortnight, and you let it go and you just come into here and you come into now and realize that this space that you have there as men is actually a sacred space. And by honoring that, it makes it all the more potent. The other thing that makes it potent is that whatever happens in that circle stays in that circle. There's no reason to go sharing what other men have shared outside of the circle. And when everyone agrees and commits to that, it gives us all permission to share honestly and openly with each other. I already mentioned no crosstalk. If someone's in the middle of going through something, sharing something, expressing something, and you kind of jump in and give your 2 cents, it takes them out of their space, and it shows them that you're more interested in what you have to say rather than what they have to say. So it's really important to give them the space to speak it all out until they're done. And there's one other thing, which is that if you're going to give feedback, that the Feedback is only if you feel like it's really relevant and it's about that man and what he spoke about. It's not an opportunity for you to jump in and compare stories. It's not an opportunity to tell jokes. It's an opportunity to get in there, and if there's something useful that you have to say specifically to what the man was sharing, then only then would you share some feedback or advice. At the end of everyone having had shared, that wanted to share, and that often took somewhere around 2 hours in total, we would then take an opportunity to discuss anything, any business that might need to be tended to. Does the next date work? Who's going to host? What's going to happen the following week? And then after that, once everyone feels like everything's clear and arranged and everyone's said what they need to say, it's also important, just like it was important to open the circle, it's also important to close the circle. So we would get together and we would have a little ritual for closing the circle, which is to just put our arms in a circle, stand up in a circle around the fire, and take 3 big sighs and let go of everything that came up for us in that moment. And then we say our goodbyes, or some people might hang around and chat more, or get out a guitar and sing some songs. And so for me, what I got from being involved with that, and what I still get from being involved in men's circle, in men's work, is it's a safe space where I know I can express anything that I'm going through. I learn how to communicate with men and how to listen to men, how to talk to them, how to listen to them. I learn that we all go through the same stuff, even if it looks like some of us are doing better, have it more together, more successful, more masculine, whatever it is. Even if it seems like that, we get to see, oh, right, yeah, we all actually go through this. We all go through it. And then something really kind of miraculous, I would say, comes from doing that on a regular basis. You become more at ease within yourself, having had that catharsis. You feel more connected and supported, having had people hold you in that way. And then you also, in some way, become more authentic in your life moving forward from those meetings. Because you know and understand who you are a little bit better, a little bit deeper, and you've had the experience of fully being yourself and not being rejected for it. So my encouragement to you, as I said before, is to go out, find a men's circle, or create one yourself. If you want any support in finding one or creating one, or how to do it, or any questions, feel free to message me, and I'm happy to go through that process with you one-on-one. And just try it out. All right, I hope that's helpful. Lots of love, guys. I'll see you